Okay, what's important about intimacy in marriage? What do you think? Can we consider marriage without intimacy like marriage? Of course not, you know. So what is the difference between married and single? The only difference, or the major difference, is about in marriage we become intimate together. So remember those verses, the two shall become one flesh. So now we are going to talk about this one fleshness. In our objective today, we have two major objectives. The first one is to understand the factors that shape up our sexual behaviors in a marital relationship. And the second one, to know how to submit such behaviors to God's plans and purposes. Okay? So, we understand that we are two genders, men and women. And for God's plan, you know, and God's purpose, He said, then said God, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. So actually, when God created us sexual being in His likeness, because He says here, you know, so God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female, He created them. So we cannot separate our gender identity, our sexual identity from God. Some people may ask, is God a man or a woman, male or female? We say no, but in God we see both of them. Okay? Then God blessed them and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. In God's purpose, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This verse originally came in the book of Genesis 2:24, and then it came back in Matthew 19. In marriage, in our sexuality, there is no shame, no guilt, you know, because they were both naked, the man and his wife, and we're not ashamed. When did shame come into our life? After the fall, when we sin. Shame and guilt actually are related to our sin, our weakness, you know. But when we get married, we get rid of that shame and sin and guilt at all, as we will see very soon. The question today, how to avoid the downfalls and how to make it work, you know. I think Abu Nabulsian spoke a lot about that, about how to avoid the downfalls. But we need to understand our sexuality. How can I understand my sexuality? There are some common beliefs and myths here, some negative attitudes about our sexuality in marriage. Intimacy and sex in marriage. The first myth means what, you know? Something wrong, okay? Don't get confused about that. Number one, intimacy and sex is only to have children. Right or wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong. Okay, problem. Number two, sex is a sin that brings shame and guilt. Right or wrong?
Yeah. Before or
After.
wrong.
We're talking about in marriage. Sex, intimacy, and sex in marriage. Sex is not a sin in marriage, okay? Number three, sex is only to satisfy my spouse.
Wrong.
Wrong. Both should be satisfied and gratified. Okay, both parties. Number four myth, sex is not needed after our 9th anniversary.
True.
True? It's a myth, of course, you know. These are all myths. Wrong, wrong. But some people may think that way. Actually, everything I put here is from whatever I may see practice, in my clinical practice, okay? So some people say that sex is not needed after our nice. Look at this one, the next one. Intimacy becomes boring after 20 years. Wrong. Should never be boring after any time of years. Okay? Sex is in marriage, and intimacy is God's blessing to mankind because we enjoy it. This sexual love brings us together to become one flesh, and it improves our union and keep us together very intimate, in love all the time. We miss each other sexually. So we come together and make love to each other, and that's how our marriage becomes so empowered and improving every day. Very important. Now, number 6. Number 6 says, it's hard to communicate our sexual needs. That's bad. It's wrong. We should be open to communicate our sexual needs in marriage. There is no shame and no guilt. If I need to make love, I have to verbalize my needs and my feelings with my spouse. The last one is very funny. I just heard that the first time last year, a year ago. Too much intimacy gets you sick. You know, bad. Of course not. Okay? Intimacy is something godly, as we shall see. So we need to educate ourselves quickly. We have 2 different genders and 2 sets of different needs. Abuna mentioned something about these 5 basic needs. He mentioned more than that. But I need to emphasize for gentlemen, for husbands, the first basic need is what? Sexual fulfillment. And guess what is the second?
Peace.
An attractive wife. Then anything may come after that. 3, supportive wife. 4, respect and admiration. And number 5, recreational companionship. For wives, and you asked that question to Abuna Gawargios earlier today, the first basic need for wives is what? Huh? Affection, emotion, love. Emotion and love and affection. Okay? So this is very important. And we will see how the dynamics in our sexual relationship work together. Number 2, conversation. She needs to talk. She needs somebody to talk to. That's a basic need for wives. Okay? Because the way her mind works. Emotions through talking. And then number 3, honesty and openness. Wives trust usually their husband unless proved otherwise. Like those 2 Iranian couples that Abuna was talking about, and she used the fingerprints and discovered that. Honesty. Once she discovers her husband is not honest, things will be in trouble. Financial support. Wives love generous husbands. They need somebody to spend money on them. And then the last one, family commitment. Very important. God's purposes of sexuality. How many purposes was in God's mind? Were in God? How many purposes? 3. First purpose, sex as a divine expression of love. And the verse here that supports that is very easily. The 2 shall become one flesh. What God has joined together, let not man separate. You know, when we become one flesh, or we call it intimacy, we become so close, intimate together. This is the highest and the utmost expression of love between any 2 persons. And this is very unique and restricted only to the relationship between the husband and wife. I can never, I'm not allowed to become intimate, sexually intimate with anybody other than my own spouse. Otherwise, it will be considered adultery or fornication, whatever. So, what is this intimacy about? It's about love. I love him, I love her, up to the point that we become so intimate, physically intimate together. That's why this sexual intimacy is a source of nurturing, feeding my marriage all the time. And that's why you cannot stay, and the Bible says that, you cannot stay away from each other for a long time. You cannot. And that we will see that very soon. Number 2, sex as a relief from sexual tension. Because of sexual immorality, we are exposed, we get tempted. You know, every day we get tempted. And that's why we need to become intimate with each other. Because of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. So this can be a protection against sexual distraction. I don't need to look outside my marriage. I cannot just look at or lust or desire somebody else. Cannot. You are married. Okay? Very important. And the third purpose, of course, we know is called the procreation, which means that we are sharing God in producing new creation. That's about procreation. Be fruitful. 4 factors shaping our sexual behavior in marriage. And we'll go through them. Some of them will go quickly, and then we'll go into more details. First one is love. Second one is physical factors, very important. Number 3, the mental and psychosocial factor, and the fourth one is the religious or spiritual factors. What about love? What is love? Love is, guess what? Love is energy. Love is the divine constructive energy and dynamic power of bonding. This is love. Love means that I need someone else to love. Okay? I cannot love without having somebody else. So when it comes to marriage, whom I love my spouse. And God wants me to do that. And as I said earlier today, here that our marriage is about love between three entities. Man and woman, and God joining them together, bonding them together. To make bonding perfect, love may lead the loving one through some sorts and levels of giving, whether through surrendering, sacrificing, suffering, or even dying for the beloved one as Christ for the church. And this is the dynamic of love inside my marriage. It's a continuum of motion of love. Actually, the mobility of love starts with Christ, then to the gentleman, then from the gentleman to the wife, and then the wife to the children. That's how it works. If I am the man and I am the head of the family or the head of the woman, I receive love from Christ and I pass it on to my wife, and my wife becomes a mother, pass it on to her children, and so on. And she loves, of course, her husband. And I'm ready to die like Christ for my wife and my family as a husband. Like other forms of energy, love is designed to energize our life. In other words, love makes our life dynamic. That's in motion. That's why marriage should start and end up with love. It's God's idea. God who just, designed that. And it's a good idea, of course. Number 2, this is love and sex in marriage. Before we get in number 2, let me have few comments about love. What is the difference between love and sex? Actually, in marriage, they are connected. They are connected. But love can take other channels to be expressed, like the 5 languages of love, for example. One of them is sex. That's why we say it more, we call it more making love rather than having sex in marriage. Because it's about kind of producing love or practicing sexual love between me and my spouse. Can both go together? Of course. Second factors are the physical factors. Let me explain to you something called the sexual response cycle. How we sexually function in marriage, in intimacy. The sexual response cycle has 3 elements: desire, arousal, and orgasm. Desire is about motivation, the appetite. This is about desire. We all should have some sort of a desire once we hit the age of adolescence or puberty, sexual desire. But we cannot practice it or express it sexually until we get married. Okay? We sublimate it. But we must have, before we get married, we need to be sure that our sexual desire is there. Okay? Is good. What about arousal? Arousal is about stage of communicating love. It's just about stimulating my mind, stimulating my body, stimulating my genitals to function sexually. So we need this stage of arousal. And that's the stage when we do the foreplay. We touch each other, we talk to each other, words of love, and admiration, and so on. So my body becomes stimulated and ready for the last stage, which sexual intercourse and reaching mutual gratification. Both spouses reach their gratification or orgasm. So are there some barriers and problems and disorders related to that? Yes, of course. And we mentioned that earlier when we spoke about the factors before marriage. Like, for example, desire can be inhibited. You know the word inhibited means what? Suppressed. I have a desire, but I cannot suppress it. I don't feel it. Sometimes they call it sexual aversion disorder or frigidity. And this can happen to both husbands or wives. Why? Why does it happen? What's behind inhibited desire or unexpressed desire? You know what?
Drugs.
Drugs?
A lot
No.
of medication.
Trauma. Mainly it's about trauma. Exposure to early life trauma can result into inhibition of desire. Like cases we see, just a girl may come and tell me, when I was young, 7, 8, 9 years or younger or older, my uncle used to touch me. Somebody, my uncle, my cousin, anybody. It's usually something related to what we called incest. Or somebody raped me. These things leave some scar in the mind and can inhibit my appetite to make love, to have sex. That's why we spoke about it, we talked about it, in order to, if I need to do some counseling about it, professional counseling, I can seek some counseling with a professional person. That's fine, no problem. Because if it happens after marriage, it will affect your intimacy somehow. Number 2, problems with arousal. As Abuna mentioned, erectile dysfunction, just the people who don't respond quickly to stimulation, to arousal, and that's probably because of some sort of sexual addiction, porn addiction, things like that. It's not necessarily reaching the point of addiction, but still, I mean, some sort of habituation before marriage. That's why we need, I mean, especially gentlemen, we always need, before we get married, to get rid of those habits that we used to, like pornography, masturbation, things like that. As much as you can, try to stop, try to fight it, because this will make you easily stimulated, more sensitive to arousal. Okay? With ladies, the red is with ladies is about dryness. You know, dryness is because of the same thing. Most likely, if it happened early in marriage, it may be related to trauma, the same thing. Usually, gratification can have two items. For gentlemen, premature ejaculation. They reach their orgasm very quickly, even before the wife would reach her own orgasm. And that's probably sometimes premature ejaculation is related to some sort of trauma. Typically what? Guess what? When the husband was very attached to his mother, when there is over-attachment between husbands and their moms, usually they ejaculate quickly. And this needs some sort of, also some therapy or counseling, okay? But things like that can improve. Everything can improve with treatment and with patience. We work on that. But with ladies, gratification can be hindered by what? By trauma. You know, she cannot reach her orgasm, or by she was circumcised, for example, genital mutilation can affect her to reach her orgasm and gratification. That's something we have to know about. But there is some common concern, some common condition called vaginismus with ladies. When she is so tight, her vagina is so tight and would not relax to allow sexual intercourse or regular sexual intercourse by her husband. And this tightness, 100% almost, is caused by something psychological. It's going to be very painful if the husband tries to admit his penis inside the vagina. It can be very, very painful for the lady. So that's something subconscious, involuntary, something out of will. It's not because she doesn't like it, or she hates making love with her husband. It's because of somebody touched her. Sometimes it's not a sexual trauma. Sometimes I saw a case recently, just happened to a lady, never sexually abused or touched or raped or anything, but because she was mistreated by her dad. She was exposed to violence. Her dad used to be very tough on her and hit her and physically abusive. And the lady was traumatized, and she expressed her trauma by doing this vaginismus. For anorgasmia, that's the loss of sensitivity of the male organ, little bit. It takes a long time for the man to reach orgasm. And usually this happens, we see it much more frequently these days because of frequent masturbation and pornography. That's why I'm emphasizing that point. Try to fight that, try to stop that. Before you get married, you will be fine, okay? Just trust me. Honeymoon. What about honeymoon? 3 things in honeymoon, please remember. Honeymoon is about time of exploration, time of stress test, and time of memories, good memories. Yes, because sometimes I check with a couple and I ask them, how was your honeymoon? And they say it was terrible. Oh my God, terrible, horrible. You know, what happened? You know, you need to enjoy you need to relax. Number one, remember, the night after, the morning after your wedding, please, you will go downstairs to the lobby of the hotel and everybody may be asking you, how was it? You know how to answer that? Sorry, it's nobody's business. With all respect, yeah, that's true. I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. I'm sorry, excuse me, and change the subject. Anything, it's nobody's business. Once you get married, it's you, your wife, and God. Okay? Nobody's business. So it's very highly recommended when you go on a honeymoon, block your phone, no text messages. Yeah, I see some individuals, whether it's the gentleman or the bride, the lady, bridegroom, who say, "Can we take our parents with us on the honeymoon? We'll go on a cruise." Or sorry, honeymoon cannot be honeymoon unless you insulate, not isolate. Insulate yourself completely. Focus on each other. This is the time when you relax, you start to introduce yourself to intimacy and sexual intimacy. You know, you need to get close to each other's body. You need to enjoy time together away from all stress. Yes, sometimes memories hit my mind now with cases when I see a crumbling marriage from day one, because the wife says immediately after we arrived into Hawaii for our honeymoon, we received a text message from his mom. Habibi, we miss you all. Everybody of your friends are asking about you. How are you doing? Of course. That was kind of a shock to the wife. Make memories. Take pictures. Enjoy time together, eating, relaxing, sleeping, walking, going to the gym, swimming, everything together. And keep these memories, because you would love to go back to this memory and say, it was really a real honeymoon. This will be very valuable 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and so on. Remember that. Okay.
Why stress test?
Because something new. You will start to face something that you never had before. You know, it's not comparable even if you, God forbid, if you had a sexual relationship before your marriage. This is not a sexual relationship. This is not sex. This is marital intimacy, holy marriage, holy matrimony. God is between you and your spouse. So this is something new for you. And you need to get rid of stress so that you can function. That's why I'm asking you to relax, to enjoy time. Honeymoon should never be less than 15, 20 days at least, to take enough time. Yes, of course. A week or 10 days, I don't think it's enough. As much as you can. And if you can't complete it in one shot, go back honeymoon another 3 months or so. Just resume. Third factor, mental and psychosocial factors. Well, this is the brain, mental factors. And they say it's all in your mind, or my mind, or my brain. 7 mental factors play. Quickly. Role of love versus infatuation. Role of fatigue. What's the difference between love and infatuation? Infatuation is something physical. I am obsessed or infatuated or overwhelmed with his body or her body. The focus is only physical. It's not love. And this can take you or can distract you somehow away from this love process. When you love, you